Hey, I'm ZSH Plays, welcome back to San Bernardino Zoo, and welcome to the Planet Zoo Tropical Pack. Yes, the wonderful people at Frontier gave me early access, and I have been very, very busy indeed building this tropical house for brown-throated sloths and other animals. I have had so much fun building this. Let's jump in and take a look at it. So as soon as Frontier announced the Tropical Pack, I knew that I wanted to build a habitat for the brown-throated sloth. That was the animal I was most excited about, and they are absolutely amazing. You're going to see a lot more of them at the end of the video. They are really cool. The question in my mind was, what am I going to build? And I really wanted to use as many of the new Tropical Pack pieces as possible, and that sort of led my decision. Now, as you have seen, the Tropical Pack theme is Indonesian islands, so lots of sort of Balinese temples and things like that. And they're not really appropriate for a South American animal like the sloth. So what I needed to do was work out what we could build with the pieces and what sort of versatility we had there. And luckily, the answer to that question is a lot of versatility. These pieces are amazing. So I'm laying out the tropical house here. We're going to have two walkthrough exhibits for the sloths, one that the guests will actually walk through, and one off in the distance to provide more sort of implied space for the sloths. And then we're going to have two walkthrough exhibits for the butterflies as well. We've got the Manaus Blue Morpho butterfly, which is native to the Amazon. We're in a South American area here, if you haven't guessed. And we're also going to have a habitat for the Galapagos giant tortoise. That is a classic tropical house animal, and with the Galapagos being off the coast of South America, very appropriate for this area as well. So let's get the Tropical Pack pieces out and take a look at them. So this is one of the stone temple pieces, and they are completely flexi-color. The stone itself has two colors that you can choose, so you can get really fine adjustments, and then the amazing moss that covers it can be changed to a different color, turned into dirt, or removed completely, and that enables you to do some really interesting things with it. And that is where I came up with this idea, which is that we're going to build an early 20th century tropical house. This would have been one of the original habitats here at San Bernardino Zoo. It would have been built maybe 1926, 1923, something like that. I decided on 1923 so it could be celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. And then once we've built the outside in this classic style, on the inside the zoo will renovate it and turn it into a completely modern walk-through tropical exhibit. And it's going to be classic and beautiful on the outside, and beautiful and very, very modern on the inside, with a few sort of modernizations on the outside that we'll put on at the end as well, just to really sort of sell that theme. So with the exception of the glass roof and the odd detail here and there, this entire building is going to be made with the new Indonesian temple pieces, but the final result won't look Indonesian at all. That is the idea. You can see the line of moss along the bottom of all the pieces of stone here. It's really beautiful, really sells that sort of classic old building look. Because we can recolor it, we can start deciding where the moss is going to go, where the bricks have sort of been weathered, where they're covered in moss, where they're still looking good, etc., and really create a much more detailed build than we've ever been able to do before. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the decals, I use those a lot, but this is going to enable us to get a lot more detail than we have done before here. So I'm just picking the exact color that I want this to be. I don't want it to be as dark as the traditional Indonesian temple pieces, but we still want it to be pretty dark and weathered and eroded, etc. This is pretty much the only piece on the front that isn't from the new pack. This is one of the base game statue plinths in bronze. I'm going to use this, as I did on the last episode, to add a little highlight to the front of the building. And then we're going to use the backs of these blocks to make the main part of the wall. Now, even on the back of these blocks, there's a line of sort of moss and dirt at the top of them, and that is absolutely amazing. I love that. What we're going to do is spin this one upside down, so we've got a bit of dirt there, where this part of the wall meets the part of the wall below it. The part below it sticks out a bit, so you can imagine, moss growing there, bits of water getting caught there after the rain and things like that. And then on the one above it, we're going to sink that slightly in so that you can't see the dirt part, so we get a nice clean wall there where it would be clean. And then above it, we'll spin it round again and have the line of dirt at the top where it comes underneath this overhang that we're putting in. And it just gives you such a rich look. I am absolutely in love with these pieces. We're going to use the big step piece as well to make the arch for the front door. And again, what I'm going to do is keep the moss on the left-hand side and then remove it on the right-hand side for a bit of variety. And then we will get back to the main wall and start extending that across the front of the building. This building is going to be pretty sizable, as you've seen, with 4 walkthrough exhibits and a habitat in it. It needs to be quite big. And that is the reason there was no episode of San Bernardino Zoo on Saturday. I'm sorry about that, guys. I'd almost finished the episode for this week when I started building this. I thought I was going to build just a little building for a sloth, and it kind of grew in the building, and before I knew it I was building an entire tropical house, and I just didn't have time to finish the other episode. But that will be out on Saturday, so watch out for that, and sorry to leave you hanging for a couple of days. But I was far too excited to get stuck into the tropical pack. I'm using one of the classic, I think, limestone pieces here to put a border on. These pieces, all these sets of pieces, go together really nicely, the new ones and the classical pack. And then I'm using the same sun motif that I created for our Amazonian Giants exhibit last week to give it a bit of a continuity with this building. I figure these will both date from the beginning of the zoo. And this one has now been renovated. I'm going to use one of Christina Triple Z's amazing fonts for the sign. So this is in the Steam Workshop group, along with most of the habitats in this zoo. If you want to check that out, if you want to get any of the amazing fonts that I've used throughout this zoo. So put this together. I'm going to call it the Tropics House. That feels like a more early 20th century name than Tropical House. But I will refer to it myself as the Tropical House throughout this build because that's just more normal, I think. And then the roof is predominantly going to be the classic glass pieces. Obviously, this is essentially a glass house. We need a lot of light in here, although we are in Southern California, so it's not like it's cold here. So there's going to be a lot of shade on the inside. So you get as much light in as possible to get the building as warm as possible, and then you use foliage on the inside to prevent there being too much direct sunlight. With sloths and the other animals that we're keeping in here, they live in the tropics, so they don't just need it to be hot, they need it to be humid. And Southern California is not a humid place, it is dry here. So we'll keep the sloths inside so we can control their temperature. So we're going to be using the sort of hothouse theory to get this nice and humid for them. So as much glass as possible on the roof. And then we're going to use some of the shingle roofs from the Twilight pack to give it a nice classic look. And then underneath that, I'm going to use, I think it's the metal plank, this piece here. This roof just positioned very slightly underneath it, so we get the metal supports from this roof visible from the inside and the tiles visible from the outside, and just get these pieces to do sort of both jobs for us. If you're new to the channel, by the way, firstly, hello, and secondly, this is San Bernardino Zoo. We've been building this on the channel since January. This is episode 12, so if you want to see how we got to this stage, then make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and check out the rest of the series. So that's the outside of the building done. Onto the inside, I've connected everything up with paths where I want the guests to go, made a few viewing galleries, and experimented with different types of paths, railings, and custom path covers to get the exact look like I want. And now we're going to start playing around with the options for the exhibits and getting in all the different enrichments for the sloths. They've got a really cute chair that they can hang and sit in. They look so cool in there. They've got heated lamps. They've got all kinds of stuff. Then we'll get on and put the null barriers in for where the Galapagos tortoises are going to go. They're going to have this spot on the right, and so the guests will be able to walk through the first sloth habitat and the second butterfly habitat, and then the rest of the building will be filled with the other two walkthrough, so there's butterflies flying around everywhere, and you might see another sloth off in the distance, and then we've got the tortoises wandering around as well. It's going to be a really, really vibrant build. I never actually built a butterfly house when the Grasslands Animal Pack came out, so it's been a lot of fun playing around with those exhibits as well. We'll get one more viewing gallery in, and then it's onto the foliage. Now, the foliage in the tropical pack is absolutely amazing. We're going to make a palette of all the new stuff here. There's loads of foliage in the free update as well. So when you combine the two of those together, we've got so many new plants to play with. You can see them here, along with all the vines as well. and we're going to absolutely fill this building with those. But we're going to start with one sort of classic tree, because I want a tree that is exactly the right height to fill this space and be visible through the raised glass roof as well from the front. We'll have a couple of those on either side, and then we'll get on to the new stuff. So terrain painting's been done, and here's the sloth chair that I told you about. That's a really cool piece. All the tropical houses that I've seen have got really dense, mulchy floors, so I'm actually going to use paths to create that. We're going to use the wood chippings path, as much of this around as we can get away with before we start crashing into the walkthroughs. And then we're going to put some of the mud wall scavola bush mix that we've been using throughout this area in, and then really bring this to life with all the new plants and get a really unique look going on. Alright, so we're going to start with some of these new vines and get these put in, loads of these really random angles just poking out of the bushes here, and just get a really sort of chaotic look. Try and get it looking as random as possible, really jungly kind of feel like you would expect to see in a tropical house. Can't really have too many of these, you just want loads of them and loads of the other new plants as well. Just get it as random looking as possible. So we'll put some of the basket ferns in as well. Absolutely love these pieces. These are one of my favourite new plants, I think. Possibly my favourite new plant in the pack, although it is hard to choose. That's so much fun using it. So we get loads of these in, and we're going to put one of these up on the column that you can see in the background as well, like a more sort of formal plant that's been placed there in a box or something like that. We'll sort that out in a bit, and we'll put some of these new vines growing up around the column as well. Really want pretty much everywhere in this building to be covered in plants. That's the whole point of a hothouse. So you shouldn't really notice the architecture or the building at all once you're in here. And then we'll move on to something really important for a tropical house, which is sound. All the tropical houses I've been to have speakers playing bird song, frogs, any sort of tropical noises to really sell the illusion that you are in the tropics somewhere. So I'm going to put one of the ambient speakers in playing jungle noises, and then because I don't like the way they look, I'm going to cover them up with one of the music speakers that isn't doing anything other than looking a lot less weird than the ambient speakers. Then we'll get some more plants in. I want loads of different levels in this build, trees going right the way up to the glass ceiling, loads of shrubs and things like that on the floor. And then we're going to briefly return to the outside of the building to do some modernizing. So with this being a classic building, I would assume that the zoo wouldn't want to sort of tear down or destroy the front of the building. So we're going to place some more modern signage on top of what is already there. So we're going to be using the cute little sloth sign from the new pack, along with these bark pieces which are new and I can see myself using a lot more in future to make a backing for the sign. There's 3 of these. I'm just going to use the same one and spin it around loads of times to get a nice consistent look for the sign. Bring this guy forward, and then we'll put some butterflies on as well to let people know what is in here. There's no tortoise signs in the game, which I'd never realised until I tried this build. Those guys got shortchanged when they when they wrote Planet Zoo, so there's no signs for them. So we'll just go with the sloth and the butterflies. And we'll add some vines as well as a border, which you'll see in the end cinematics. Now back onto the inside, another one of the amazing pieces that I really like from the new pack are these leaf litter pieces. These are great. There's quite a few of these, I think maybe 6 of them. All different sorts of shapes and sizes, and again with this tropical house you want these completely covering the floor. They're also going to be really useful for covering up the gaps between the wood chipping paths that I put in and the soil that's just the sort of standard terrain, because the colours don't match up on those. And once we've used these leaves to cover up all the gaps between them, it just looks so good and so rich. Really happy with that combination. Put some strangler fig roots in as well. Can't build anything in our Amazon area without using the strangler fig roots, so I wanted to get a few of these in. And then I'm going to take some of the fake trees that we made for the otter habitat and use those to cover up some of the sloth enrichments and their climbing, so that it looks more tropical, so it's not just 100% bamboo. I need to check this and work out all their different animation points and make sure that they're not going to clip into these at any point. That is a job for another day. Going to put in all the leaf litter now that I mentioned, and you can see here how once you've got it in the right place, it just joins together all the different textures, and you end up with just loads of different types of soil and mud that looks really suitable for a tropical house without being able to see the join. Then we're going to drop a waterfall in, or two in fact. We're going to have one on each side, and we'll use the same trick that we used in Iguana Falls, basically having it round the wrong way really, and recoloring the water so we get a really subtle water effect like this, rather than a rushing torrent. And then we'll put a load of fog and misters around as well to really give it that tropical vibe. One of my favorite things about this build is before I actually put the animals in, I hit play and it just felt really, really dynamic. You've got the fog from the enrichment items, sprinklers scattered around everywhere, the misters from the exhibit, plants moving. It just really felt dynamic without a single animal in it, which is a really good sign for a build. And we are almost ready to take a look at it. The last thing I'm going to do is use one of these new bamboo panels just to join up the small habitat gate to the path railings, make sure the guests don't go wandering in with the tortoises. I think this is the first time I've ever used the small habitat gate. There's so few animals that you can use it with. You know, if you use this for like a meerkat or something, they'll be up that mesh and out the door in seconds. But tortoises are one of the few animals that I'm pretty confident won't be escaping through there anytime soon. And with that done, let's take a look at our finished tropical house. That old stonework looks so good. I love all the different textures and details on there. Here come the tortoises. I've kept their area of the tropical house much barer than the rest of it. And here are the sloths. Climbing over the path, it looks so cool. Sometimes you see the guests looking up to them and pointing. And the whole thing just feels really, really lush. I absolutely love this build. Here he is chilling in his chair and grabbing some food. This is another amazing animation. I am so happy with this building. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you next week for some more San Bernardino Zoo.